Today is May the 24th of 2017, and I'm on the phone with Eric Parker, who is a political prisoner in Pahrump, Nevada, at the Nevada Southern Detention Center. Eric's been incarcerated since March 3rd of 2016. Took nearly a year to get a trial, which resulted in a hung jury, and so now, later in June, he will be retried again on the same set of charges, but the government will introduce a new set of evidence, or they're going to try to. We're looking today at an article that was published by Breitbart, and it was published on March 29th of 2017, and it was an interview with the new Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke. Eric, you've read this article, and I just wondered, how do you feel about some of the sentiments that Zinke puts forth about the government's presence in Western lands?
I would say that if it's legitimate, he's saying some good things. Having said that, I've seen a lot of politicians give lip service and tell us what we want to hear. And I worry, call me jaded, but I worry that's what it is more lip service without any real backbone to it.
I think your gripe is legit, Eric, because reading through this, Breitbart quotes Zinke as saying there's a lot of distrust with some of the heavy-handedness of the government. I would say arrogance. And so if Zinke is going to admit that the government acts with heavy-handedness, then one has to wonder what they're going to do about it. And you're speculating that this could be lip service. And so I guess I would ask you, Eric, what could Zinke do to substantively offset the wrongs of the previous administration? Because as you go down through this article, he says the war on Western lands is over. That's paraphrased, but that's basically what he says. What could Zinke do to get beyond lip service?
So there's a couple questions there. I would say that first and foremost, this guy is admitting that there's a heavy-handed nature to their reactions. I witnessed that heavy-handed nature, and I think that might be a little bit of an understatement. I think it's a little bit of sugarcoating. Heavy-handed nature it could be construed as what they did to Dave Bundy when they arrested him, and they roughed him up a little bit and drug his face across the ground. Heavy-handed nature could be how they handled Margaret Houston while she was standing, asking what was in the back of those dump trucks. You know, these women were afraid that there was dead baby cows in the back of these trucks, and they just wanted to know what was in it. And she had water in her hand and a cell phone, and she got slammed to the ground. The idea that heavy-handed nature could be those things, but when you have full combat gear and AR-15s and MRAPs and, that's armored personnel carriers. So it's a little bit more than a heavy-handed nature. It looked like a war zone. It looked like they were prepared for war. And I find it ironic that this man's an ex-Navy SEAL. I won't speculate too much there, but I just found it interesting that this man's an ex-Navy SEAL. And what I was looking at in Bunkerville looked like a platoon of Navy SEALs ready to fire on American people for holding their hands up with signs that said, BLM, you're out of line for your heavy-handed nature. So, the war's over. When I first read that, I was sitting here at a computer and I read that, and it said that he would say that the war is over with this president and with this administration, I got emotional and I had a tear in my eye because that is what we've been trying to accomplish. And he called it a war. And what I witnessed was a preparation for war against the American people. And that's what we've been trying to get across. But then when I started to think about it more, I really got upset because, you know what, Mr. Zinke, why don't you tell my kids and my wife that the war is over? Because there's good men sitting in here in this CCA, this concentration communist camp of America, and we're waiting to be tried again, and yet you're offering the American people, and my family included, this lip service that the war is over with this administration. Well, we all voted for that president thinking that and hoping and praying that the war would be over and that these things would come to an end. But this administration's been in for over 100 days now, and we don't even get any responses to our letters. We don't get any any response whatsoever. There's so many people writing this administration, and so many people reaching out, and we're not even getting any response. You know, this article was published on the 29th, right? So I was in court on the 29th, listening to your Rangers, Mr. Zinke, come up there and bear false witness and lie through their teeth about what occurred that day. And these are your men now, Mr. Navy SEAL, sir. These are your men, your Rangers, that you're allowing to come up there and lie through their teeth. And if you expect to change anything about the way the American people trust this agency, this government, then you're going to have to be the one to stop them. You have to stop them. You have to go to them and you tell them no. You tell this DA no. You tell you tell your Rangers, sir, that they're not going to go up on that stand and lie. If you want to get the American people to trust your agency again, you tell them. Because we all see the video. The video is in this trial too. And the hypocrisy of their lies is just blatant, sir. And, I would say if you are willing to tell the American people, my family and the families of these other men in here, that this war is over, then end it, sir, and pull these POWs out of this concentration camp.
Yeah, I think it's telling that Zinke, he's quoted as saying, "I would say the war is over with the new president and the administration. We want to be good neighbors." So for him to characterize it as a war to begin with is telling.
This call is from an inmate facility.
Zinke goes on to say, "We want to see when we have a law enforcement problem, our first line of defense is the local sheriff." And Breitbart says, suggesting that a BLM truck would not be as effective in thwarting people upset with the government. So it sounds like he wants to get away.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like he wants to get away from this militarized presence that the Bureau of Land Management has in some of these rural western lands. And so for you to point out that he characterizes the Obama administration's land management policies as heavy-handed in nature, and then goes on to say, actually, let's just call it what it was. It was a war. And he says, we want that to be over. But I think what I'm hearing you saying, and I would agree 100%, is that it's not enough to say that a war is over. Oh, there's some different people, calling the shots, so we just won't do it the same way. Let's just say that the war is over. What I hear you saying is that's not enough. It's not enough to pay lip service, because there are dozens of people who are imprisoned because of their lawful, nonviolent protest to these land management policies.
When we showed up to this protest, and we were all concerned and worried about the outcome of what was going to happen, because we weren't sure. We had heard that there was quite the militarized presence, and we had heard officials threatening protesters literally with death, as far as you better have funeral plans and body bags if you're coming to support these Bundys. We weren't sure what we were going to run into, and what we did run into, it was a war. I think if the sheriff had been, I think he's correct in saying that they need the sheriff to take the front of this, because the contrast of the sheriff's department, it was just, I don't even have the words, because the sheriff's department showed up and said, hey, put these long guns away. Literally in the video, in the discovery, you see the sheriff's department show up and say, hey guys, put this gear and these long guns away, and back up, and we'll take the front of this thing. And they did that numerous times, more than once. They said, hey guys, put your long guns away and back up. We got the head of this. And when they took the head of this, you're talking about 2 or 3 Metro guys, 2 or 3 Sheriff's Department guys, in their regular uniform, with their badge, and smiles on their face, saying, yeah, it's okay. You have a constitutional right to stand there. Just don't bust through this gate, and don't hurt anybody, and don't break any laws, and we're all right with you standing there. I mean, the contrast was so different. They're sitting there with just their badge and their little uniform and that smile on their face and say, no, you exercise your constitutional right. That opposed to men dressed in full camouflage, jumpsuits, tactical gear, helmets, masks, machine guns pointed at the crowd, saying, disperse or we'll shoot you. I mean, that's, yeah. What kind of reaction are you going to get? The American people will not just step aside and be intimidated into not exercising the constitutional right. We're not going to accept that. That's not going to happen. And so, as we stood there, we got goaded in to this situation, and he characterizes it as a war. Well, I would have to reluctantly agree to that, because I don't want to say it was a war, but I mean, if he's going to go as far as to say it was a war, and that they were engaged in a war against the American people, I think that's fair. It's a fair analysis of the situation. And if it's gonna be over now, and if they're going to end this war, I think it's going to take a little more than just some words in a Breitbart article, because there's literally thousands of people across the country that watched that happen, that know what happened, that saw us react to it, and saw us 2 years later be arrested for our reaction to it. And they're watching, and they're frustrated. And I get letters from all over this country, and those are just the ones willing to write me. There's probably quite a few that don't want to be tracked to having any involvement. But for every 5 that are willing to stand out in front of the courthouse with a sign that says, "Hey, this isn't right," there's 50 sitting back watching this thing, and he's got to know that. He's like I said, it's kind of ironic that he's a Navy SEAL. He's got to understand that, and what he's trying to do is soften this thing and paint a picture and dismiss it. I'm afraid that that's what he's going to do. I don't want to say what he's doing and what he's not doing, but I'm afraid that's what he's doing. And it's dangerous to just dismiss it, because we need to engage it, fix it, and put a proper end to it. Because I do want it to stop. I don't think it needs to go on. And that's not gonna happen with just some lip service in the Breitbart.
I think quickly going back to what you said about the local presence that day on April 12th, there are videos all over the internet that show Tom Roberts with his arm, sitting on that gate, smiling, like you said, laughing, just saying, "Hey, everything's going to be fine. Let's just handle this appropriately, and we'll all go about our business." And as we sat through trial, we also saw that Todd Engel walked up to the bridge, saw what was happening, and his immediate response was to run over to 2 Nevada highway patrolmen.
You have 1 minute remaining.
To stand there on that bridge and to point out to them what he was able to see. And he, for over an hour, stood next to 2 Nevada highway patrol, talking. They shook his hand and patted him on the back when he left. There was a stark difference.
Actually admitted that he was helpful. They actually admitted that he was helpful in that trial, and he's facing. See, we're losing men still, Mr. Navy SEAL. We're still losing men, and if you're going to end this war, you need to end it before more men are lost to this judicial system, sir.